Happy Friday, March 12th. Welcome to the 3 Things I Learned, Saas Sports Tech and Live Events Ethics Edition. We have told this story in many entrepreneur groups, in many MBA classrooms, and even in an ethics class at Pepperdine. And we generally get different answers from different people. So let me set it up and then I'll tell you the 3 things we learned from it. Back in 2009, we were bootstrapping the business and we weren't doing all that great. We only had $60,000 to our name and 8 people working there. Many of us were not getting paid anything at all. And out of the blue, a check shows up for just over $350,000 from one of our largest customers, who is a big Fortune 100 company that deals in the billions. We immediately think that this might be a double booking of some kind, so we call our contact and say, I believe you've paid us twice for 2008, we're sending the check back. He begs us not to. He says that sending the check back will send his budget into disarray and cost the company much more than the money that they just sent us. So the simple conclusion for us was, great, it's prepayment. You can just use it as a prepayment for services going forward. And again, he begs us not to. He says, again, you don't understand how our budgets work. We're very highly government regulated. We have government contracts. I know it doesn't sound like the right thing to do, but you really just need to keep this money. Right? Now, at the time, this money was a game changer for us. This kept us alive. As stated earlier, we only had $60,000 to our name. So we had a decision to make. Do we keep the money or do we send it back? And I present this in heavy detail all the time, and usually we end up 60-40 one way or the other. But first, let me tell you the 3 things I learned from the situation, and then we'll talk about what we did and why people make the decisions they do. Number 1, how you handle every situation earlier in your career and early in your company is going to impact the decisions you make later. Make sure that you're setting that groundwork so that you can make those decisions going forward. The stakes will always change. In that case, it actually will never be higher than what was there. That was survival versus death of the company. But you're going to have these situations often, and how you handle them early is going to help you make decisions easier later. Number 2, nothing is ever black and white. That is not where Satan plays. He plays in the gray area, and you're going to have a lot more gray areas. I have been in rooms of 100 people who have argued this for an hour and have not come to an agreement or a consensus as to what to do going forward. Unfortunately, when you're in charge, that's your job, so you're going to have to make that decision. And finally, number 3, there are no kudos for doing the right thing. Now, this scenario isn't very nefarious. He's telling us to keep the money. In fact, after multiple phone calls, he kind of threatened that if we don't keep the money, he might consider using other vendors. Now, that sounds sketchy, but that's not why he wanted to keep it. I've actually known this person for over a decade. It was just an honest clerical mistake, and that was a normal course of business for their company and how they handled those things. I even talked to their accounting side about it, and they were okay with this. You will see scenarios where people are nefarious in what they do. I had coworkers at StubHub and AEG who do that regularly. There are no kudos for doing the right thing or for whistleblowing when you see that happening. In fact, a lot of times those nefarious people do sometimes get ahead. You are going to have a handicap when you do the right thing going forward. You got to trust that it's worth it in the end. So what do? We return the check. We argued this left and right. It's usually 60-40 to keep the check when we have this discussion in a room. We returned the check with 2 really simple reasons. One, we just had that gut feeling that it wasn't right. Now, that's not the main reason we did it. But the other reason we did is we just decided that this is a publicly traded company. This person was in charge of the funds that people were investing in that company, and we just didn't feel right with those funds coming to us for nothing. So that was an early experience for us. I hope you learned something from it and know that those decisions are going to come. There is no right answer. You just got to choose the one that's right for you and go forward with it. That's it for this week. We'll see everyone next week on The 3 Things.